Zhang Eiling's Heart Sutra. In this abnormal love between father and daughter, there is no winner and no one gets love. I said that I wasn't sure whether I liked Zhang Eiling's novels or not, but I just bought the whole set to study them. When I read the Heart Sutra, I felt so uncomfortable that I felt like vomiting and was so depressed that I couldn't breathe. This is the first time that reading a novel can produce such a serious physiological reaction. This novel, among all Zhang Eiling's works, is not very famous, but the material is bold. If you read it, you will never forget it. The story tells the story of a seemingly perfect, happy and harmonious family of 3. But an unexpected, painful, almost suffocating story happened. Zhu Xiaohan held a party for her 20th birthday and invited her close classmates and friends to her home to participate in the event. She behaved quite cheerfully, lively, and even exaggeratedly. As soon as her father Zhu Fengyi came home, she immediately walked up to him and said in a tone that was almost coquettish and a little reproachful, "Look at you. Even your coat is soaked with sweat. I don't know why you are so busy." The tone was like my girlfriend feels sorry for her boyfriend. Then she solemnly took her father's arm and introduced to everyone that this was her father, so as not to be misunderstood as her boyfriend again. Because the last time father and daughter went to the movies together, they were mistaken for a couple. This time, I took the opportunity of the birthday party to clarify their relationship to everyone. They are father and daughter, not lovers. We say that the more guilty you are, the more you want to explain something. This point has been verified by Zhu Xiaohan. As soon as the party was over, Xiaohan stayed with his father and behaved very affectionately. If Xiaohan hadn't accidentally learned from Duan Linking that Gong Haley liked her, Xiaohan's sticky relationship with his father might not have been broken off. Love has always been the case, and those who are favored have nothing to fear. Xiaohan used Gong Haley's love to rouse Zhu Fengyi's jealousy. In order to achieve the purpose of loving her even more and being unable to live without her, I never plan to leave you for the rest of my life. One day when I am old, people will say, "Why doesn't she get married? She has never had a chance to get married, and no one has ever loved her." Everyone will think so, and maybe one day you will too. Thinking this way, I can't help but prevent this day, so I want you to remember all this. However, Xiaohan overestimated this love that should never have happened in the first place. This overly forceful confession obviously not only failed to rouse Zhu Fengyi's jealousy, but made him clearly realize that he could not continue to trap and delay his daughter like this. After all, she is already 20 years old and has reached the age to talk about marriage. Feng Yi said, "As long as I have a human heart, how can I be happy? I see you wasting your time in vain. If you sacrifice yourself, what good will it do to me in this abnormal love? One wants to escape, but the other wants to fall deeper and deeper, creating more and more absurd dreams." As a result, the conflict intensified. Zhu Fengyi wanted to break up and planned to take Mrs. Zhu away from home and go somewhere else to avoid Xiaohan, but Xiaohan also wanted to go with her. In order to completely make Xiaohan give up, Zhu Fengyi took out her trump card and fell in love with Duan Linking, a girl who looked more or less like Xiaohan. This completely stimulated Xiaohan and made her go crazy, venting all her anger and grief on her mother. Mrs. Zhu was finally willing to believe that her daughter had always been deeply in love with her husband. In order to save her daughter, Mrs. Zhu finally made the most powerful move in her life, sending her to her third aunt's house to live for a few months to calm down. It was also at this time that Xiaohan realized for the first time that his mother loved him so deeply and was so tolerant of him. The story ends here. After reading it, I felt heartbroken. Does abnormal father-daughter love exist? The answer is yes. In this special relationship, people's emotions are complex, but they usually don't really last long. Why? Because as Zhu Fengyi said, anyone with a little bit of human heart cannot be happy. Men will become more and more self-blame, more and more fearful, and worried about being morally condemned, while women will become more and more bold and unbridled, always wanting to break through the moral bottom line and fly to the flames for love. Of course, in the end, it all comes to nothing. In this triangular relationship, There is no winner, and no one really gets love. Zhu Xiaohan deviated from the normal growth trajectory and has scars all over his body. Is she happy? Maybe. At least there is a pretense of happiness on the surface. Everyone thinks she is innocent, pure and lovely. Gong Haley, who loves her deeply, thinks she is the most innocent and pure girl he has ever met. Her mother had always treated her as an innocent and lovely child, even though she was already 20 years old. In those old times, she was obviously a mature woman who could get married at any time. But what is the reality? Is she really happy? Only Zhu Fengyi understands her best, but she is just deliberately pretentious and doesn't want to grow up. Once she grows up, she will become alienated from him. She began to have a vague affection for her father 7 or 8 years ago, when her sexual consciousness was budding at the age of 12 or 13. However, the father did not avoid this kind of thing in time, and the mother only regarded her as a child and did not take it to heart. Sometimes she was suspicious, but she was worried that she was being petty. In this way, Zhu Xiaohan deviated from the normal growth trajectory. She was originally beautiful and had no shortage of suitors, but these suitors all came and went in Xiaohan's hands. It wasn't until her 20th birthday that her classmates' jokes, her mother's beatings, and her father's deliberate withdrawal and deliberate cheating made her realize that she had endured pain that she shouldn't have at her age. With her heart full of pain, she had to accept the fact that there could be no outcome between her and her father. They could only break up. Zhu Fengyi, cowardice, selfishness, and lack of responsibility have harmed her daughter. Throughout her life, rather than blaming Xiaohan for provoking this relationship, it would be better to say that Zhu Fengyi is the one who deserves death and bears the main responsibility. The book describes vaguely, Fengyi, I don't blame you, I don't blame anyone. I only blame myself for being too confused. Xiaohan said, listening to your tone, it seems that you only blame yourself for being fooled by me. It seems that I deliberately have trouble with my mother and alienate your love. We often say that when a son is older, he avoids his mother, and when a daughter is older, she avoids her father. As parents, you should clearly realize that when your children grow up and reach adolescence, they will have desires. As parents, you should consciously establish the differences between men and women. Instead of blindly pampering, mistakenly thinking that children will always be children, will not grow up or mature. Love needs to be measured. If Zhu Fengyi had not been so cowardly, selfish, and lacking in responsibility, how could she have harmed her daughter's life? He does not love Mrs. Zhu and has no resonance with her mentally. But the unhappiness of marriage should not be obtained from his daughter, let alone spiritual comfort from her daughter. This is unclear, selfish, cowardly, and lacking. Take responsibility. This kind of behavior is even more hateful and abominable than cheating. It hurts not only the relationship between husband and wife, but also the family relationship between Xiaohan and his mother. This made Xiaohan a sinner. Zhu Fengyi handed her the knife, and she became the executioner. She committed a crime. She slowly killed the love between her parents and cut it into pieces piece by piece, linky of love. Mrs. Zhu, tolerant, the most miserable tool person in this unethical love affair. Mrs. Zhu became an invisible tool. She originally loved to be lively, but gradually she withdrew from everyone's sight and stood in the corner, quietly watching her daughter become the protagonist of the family, watching her and her husband get tired. Despite my suspicions, even when I see them behaving affectionately, they just smile, as if the relationship doesn't exist if I don't reveal the mystery of it. It is the most painful thing for me to wake up alone when everyone in the world is drunk. Instead of doing this, why not do it the other way around, where everyone else is awake and I am the only drunk? In this way, wouldn't it make you numb and not feel the pain? As long as you don't believe it, don't uncover it. As long as you are tolerant and forbearing enough, this family will still be happy and complete on the surface. At least, your daughter will be happy. Mrs. Zhu said, every family has its own difficulties. If I had the temperament of your Shinpai people and tried to fight against them, I'm afraid you would no longer have this family. She possesses traditional female virtues, forbearance, and generosity. It's not that she doesn't know that her home is not as happy as it seems to outsiders. And it's not that she doesn't know that the relationship between her husband and daughter is different from ordinary people. But she was unwilling to take the initiative to open the scars and quietly watch them ferment. She endured more pain than her husband cheating on her alone. At least, for her, her husband's cheating only hurt their relationship as husband and wife. But it did not hurt the family relationship between mother and daughter. It would not be hurt to this extent. If you don't believe it, just look at her reaction to Zhu Fengyu's cheating. Mrs. Su said, "If you don't let them go, so what? Your father doesn't love me, and he can't love you. The person who can keep him can't keep his heart. He loves linking. He can see it with his own eyes. He is about to be 40. Life in this world only lasts a few years. Love only lasts a few years. Let them go. Me? I have always been a person who doesn't care, and I still don't care. What matters is you. You are young." Mrs. Su always loved her daughter the most. When her daughter was in the most pain and heading towards the abyss, she pulled her to the shore and allowed her to be reborn. Mother's love is the greatest after all. In conclusion, in this love affair, there are no winners and losers. Did Duan Linking win Zhu Fengyu's true love? Not necessarily. People in extramarital affairs just get what they need, one for money and the other for sex. What they can't get from Xiao Han, they all get from Duan Linking. Did Gong Haley lose because he didn't marry Xiao Han in the end? No, it saved him instead. Marrying someone you don't love will not only harm the other person, but ultimately yourself. Overall, the person who lives the most transparent life is Mrs. Su, a seemingly cowardly and incompetent person, but actually a person with great wisdom, just because she loves her relatives so much that she can't bear to hurt them. Because we understand, we are compassionate.
Alright, this part of the story ends here.
Want to know what happened next? Let's listen to the breakdown next time.